In this paper, I examine the importance of scale as a quality of research product, building upon the 4 qualities described by Will Odom and colleagues in their 2016 paper, From Research Prototype to Research Product. In addition, I reflect upon the lessons learned from designing and producing research products at scales ranging from one-offs to those reproduced in the thousands. I describe details from a body of research completed by our studio by examining 4 research products that were designed, developed and manufactured at 4 distinct levels of scale. The paper draws out details from these projects that have not previously been reported and discusses the implications of scaling our practice. Odom originally described the 4 key qualities of research product as inquiry, finish, fit and independence. In this paper, I propose scale as a 5th quality to add to this original. In addition, I suggest that like scale, all these qualities are dimensional. Research products can have a higher or lower degree of inquiry, finish, fit, and independence, and each of these can be impacted by scale. Take, for example, the drift table, a research product designed and built in 2003. It is an electronic coffee table whose surface is sensitive to the weight of objects placed on it, and this is used to control the direction of the slow scroll of aerial photography visible through a central viewport. The experience has been described like a digital hot air balloon. We designed the drift table long before Google Maps, and despite it being a relatively straightforward concept, it is a very complicated artifact. An enormous amount of work went into the design and development of the unseen parts of a drift table to elevate it beyond a research prototype and make it represent what it is rather than what it could be. Developing the drift table involved a series of engineering challenges that I detail in the paper. Despite its complexity, it ran very reliably in the home of our participants seen here for around 3 months. The drift table was deployed further with other participants, during which it continued to remain reliable. Its finish was high enough for it to be independent in these situations, but it had been treated with great care. It required at least 2 people to lift it, and we transported it to and from deployments in taxis, carefully manoeuvring its hefty mass up staircases and through narrow doorways. We were then invited to exhibit it at the Viper Festival in Switzerland. This is where the problems first emerged for our highly finished research product. It sustained severe damage on its return trip, despite being very well packed in a custom wooden crate. This taught us a valuable lesson. Our research product was not as robust as we thought it was. We had built something that would work very well if handled with great care, but not something that could be transported like any regular product. Around this time, the drift table was also invited to be part of several high-profile exhibitions, including 2 that were happening at the same time. Our solution was to re-engineer and build 2 new drift tables that could withstand ordinary handling. Externally and functionally identical to the original, the new design had a very different and highly finished internal construction. These 2 drift tables have been completely reliable and are still functioning today, despite being frequently transported for exhibition. This process was also the inspiration for beginning to think about making multiples for a larger audience. What we learned from this experience is that a research product can have a life that extends beyond what was originally planned, and in this context, qualities of finish and independence can be seen as dimensional. Research products can be more or less finished, or more or less independent. Our original drift table was robust enough for carefully handled deployments, but not robust enough to be freighted to exhibitions. The next project is our first attempt at producing research products at scale. The indoor weather stations from 2011 were designed to reveal the microclimate of the home across 3 distinct devices. We produced 20 sets of indoor weather stations and deployed them simultaneously in households local to our university. These devices were small and very complicated to build, and I detail in the paper how their level of finish was far higher than the drift table. By deploying to multiple households at once, we were able to collect a greater range of qualitative data than the deployment of a one-off product could. But there are trade-offs to this approach. First, the varied interpretations that we received from participants came at the cost of the very deep and rich engagement that can be achieved with a single participant engaging with a one-off research product. Second, deploying research products in parallel to multiple households necessitated the design of additional materials to gather the multiple voices. In effect, the level of finish increases substantially. Third, in our ambition to scale the project, we had produced designs that had a lesser fit than our previous highly situated one-off research products. Next in the paper is the data catcher project. These are mobile, location-aware devices that stream short messages that are derived from a large number of big data sources about the area they are in. With this project, we increased the scale of our production, and the paper details the technical complexities of batch producing 130 data catchers, which required a level of finish that was higher than the indoor weather stations. The data catchers were distributed to participants recruited from passers-by at street markets and boot sales around London. We gathered feedback by using filmmakers who made short documentaries about people's experiences with devices after they had lived with them for a while. The paper details more about how people orientated to the data in the messages, which in many ways highlights the data catcher being a more uncomfortable fit than our previous projects. But the breadth of opinions demonstrated new and unexpected perspectives that encouraged us to pursue scale. The final project in the paper is the My Nature Watch camera, a design for a self-build and inexpensive wildlife camera that people could make themselves at home. We designed it explicitly for non-experts who would not normally consider building any kind of product or device, and it was developed in conjunction with the BBC Natural History Unit to be featured on their primetime wildlife TV show, Springwatch. This research product has been reproduced by 3,500 people using detailed instructions, software and support for a website that we have designed. It features an online maker forum that was created not only as a venue for people to ask questions, but also as a place that could become a hub for a community we wanted to grow, where people could share content and ideas. The My Nature Watch camera is the culmination of our efforts to scale up the production of research products. Although conceptually and visually simple, the design and the development of the website and software has a level of finish that is perhaps higher than any other research product we have produced, which may seem surprising given the simplicity of the physical artifact. The use of scale in our practice has been a powerful method to explore how research products might reach ever larger audiences, not only to gather varied accounts, but to see our research products have a wider impact on the public and to a smaller extent enter the mainstream, as in the case of the My Nature Watch camera, whose growth and popularity is now somewhat out of our hands. To recap, this paper details 4 projects at different levels of scale. The one-off research product is best suited for situations and inquiry that require a thick description of the engagement. It can have a high degree of fit to a situation, but with a level of finish and independence that can be just enough to make it for a field trial. Low volume batch production in the 5 to 30 range is well suited for creating research products for a small group or community. Feedback will be in broader strokes, but many more varied opinions can be captured at this scale. The fit of a low-volume research product will be lesser than a one-off, but the levels of finish and independence will need to be greater. The increased scale of high-volume batch production has an exponential demand on resources. Insights from the inquiry will be more fleeting, yet more varied. The finish and independence will need to be far higher than a low-volume study or one-off. Self-build is an efficient means to distribute research products to a wide and potentially very large audience. It will not be possible to capture everyone's feedback. The finish and independence will need to be at the highest level. Through the paper, I demonstrate how scale is an additional quality of research product and that all these qualities are dimensional. Finally, this paper is not to single out any level of scale as being better than the other, but to unpack what makes working at particular levels distinct. To wrap up, there are many reasons why we have been drawn towards working at different scales. First, we have found it incredibly compelling to create research products that enable more people to experience our designs. Second, it demonstrates how practice-based research can integrate impact into a project from the very beginning. Third, we were able to gather more varied accounts of people's experiences with our designs across diverse groups. Finally, participants do not necessarily need to regard large-scale research products as research at all due to their high finish and independence. They are free to encounter them like they would conventional forms of computational technology. This allows us to assume that their feedback reflects a degree of uncoloured honesty that is harder to achieve with the closer research participant relationship that is present with a one-off. These then are the contributions that I hope will encourage others to consider scale as a valuable method to embrace in research projects.